Hello and assalamu alaikum, dear listeners and viewers. Asha kori apnara shob bala asoin. Thank you for joining me on Our Voice with Amina, where there's no stigma, no shame. So amra raisku topic hoilo positive parenting, online safety, drugs and grooming. Kheu familiar takta faroin ze I subject kita ba ita terms kita, I language or money kita, but kheu maybe not too familiar. So আমি just থোড়া হইমু but আমার guest যেন আছেন তাইন আরো থোড়া in depth যাইবা. So positive parenting হইলো আমরা বাচ্চার লগে যে সম্পর্ক আছে এটা আমরা একটা পজিটিভ ওয়েতে আমরা মেইনটেইন করতাম, রিলেশনশিপ স্ট্রং করতাম, ট্রাস্ট বিল্ড করতাম। আমরা বাচ্চারে আমরা বালাফত দেখাইতাম, সোসাইটির মাঝে তারা কিলা চলতা আমরা দেখাইয়া দিতাম। তারারে আমরা লাইফের সব জিনিসের মাঝে আমরা লিড করতাম, আমরা শিখাইতাম যে বালাফতে কিলা চলা। প্লাস আমরা কালচারাল ডিফারেন্স আছে, আমরা রিলিজিয়াস এলিমেন্টসও আছে। সো সবটা নিয়ে আমরা তারারে positive parenting আমরা দেখাইতামও শিখাইতামও। আমরার বাচ্চার যে জরুরি জিনিস আছে, সো বেসিক এসেনশিয়াল নিডস একটা আছে, ওটা আমরা সব কিছু লাইক আমরা মেইনটেইন করিয়া যাইতাম, কনসিস্টেন্ট রাখতে হইব। প্লাস আমরার যে ভিতরে যে আমরার বাচ্চার লাগি যে একটা মায়া থাকে, একটা আনকন্ডিশনাল লাভ যে একটা থাকে, সো ওটাও দিয়া যায় আমরা। Obviously naturally as parents একটা আমরার মাঝে থাকে, বাট সামটাইমস obviously আমরা স্টোরিজ শুনি যে কোনো প্যারেন্টসের মাঝে বা বাচ্চারার মাঝে একটা রিলেশনশিপ ব্রেকডাউন হইতে পারে, অ্যাবিউসিভ হইতে পারে। সো আমরা যে সময় আইছে আমরা সারা লাইফও আমরা ইন্টারনেটের মাঝে, সো সব জিনিস ইন্টারনেটের মাঝে পাওয়া যায়। সো when we say online safety, অনলাইনের সেফটি মানে হইলো যে আমরা জানতাম বুঝতাম আমরার বাচ্চারা কিতা দেখরা, কিতা হুনরা, কোন গেম খেলাইরা, এটা তারারে কিলা ইনফ্লুয়েন্স করে। সো অ্যান্ড প্লাস আমরাও তারার লগে এটা ইনভলভ থাকতাম। সো আমরা also আমরা টাইম অপশনস আছে একটা কন্ট্রোল করার। সো আমরা গেস্ট যারা টাইম হইবা যে কিতা অপশনস আছে আমরার কাছে to maintain that and restrict that in a positive way. So restriction ওর মানে নাই যে আমরা সপ্তাহ খাটিয়া তারারে isolate করে দিতাম, বাট এইজোর লগে একটা restriction আছে। So obviously ইন্টারনেটের মাঝে সব জাতর অ্যাক্সেস আছে, দুনিয়ার যত জাতর অ্যাক্সেস আছে গরর ভিতরে বইয়া আমরা পাইতাম পারি ইন্টারনেটের মাধ্যমে। Drugs and grooming. Drugs তো আর সবে চিনরা মোটামুটি ড্রাগস ওর মানে কিতা, বাট গ্রুমিং এর মানে কিতা? গ্রুমিং আমরার বাচ্চারার গেছে ফেস টু ফেস হইতে পারে, ইন্টারনেটের মাঝে হইতে পারে, কোনো ফ্রেন্ড বা ফ্যামিলির থ্রুতে হইতে পারে। সো গ্রুমিং হইলো এক ধরনের লাইক ট্রেনিং। সো একটা মানুষরে তুমি এমন বাটে আরকি ট্রেন করায় যে তারার লগে তুমি রিলেশনশিপ বিল্ড করায়, ট্রাস্ট বিল্ড করতায় যাতে তোমার কোনো লাভ বা ফায়দা হইতে পারে। সো এগুলো তারা অ্যাবিউসিভ ওয়েতেও ইউজ করতে পারে। বেশিরভাগ মানুষ গ্রুমিং করে তারারে কোনো জিনিস মেবি ড্রাগস বেচার লাগি হইতে পারে, চাইল্ড ট্রাফিকিং এর লাগি হইতে পারে, ও সেক্সুয়াল অ্যাবিউস এর লাগি হইতে পারে। সো there's many different types of abuse, and আমরা গেস্টে আরো ডিটেইল এর মাঝে কইবা। সো আশা করি লাইক সবে বুঝতে পারছইন। সো আমার গেস্টের লগে আমরা ডিসকাশন করার আগে আমরা একটা ছোট ইন্ট্রো ব্রেক বাদে আমরা আবার ঘুরিয়ে আইয়া।
সকাল দুপুর সন্ধ্যা রাতে তোমার আমার কথা হবে রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলায়, রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলা,
রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলা, সারাদিন সারাক্ষণ।
রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলা, রিয়েল ফ্রিকোয়েন্সিস।
Welcome back, everybody. So আমার লগে আইজ আসইন আমার guest Abdul Mukit Bhai. Salam Bhaiya, how are you today?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I'm very well. How are you?
I am good, alhamdulillah. I'm so sorry we're a little bit late today. We had some technical issues, so even in the UK we can have, power cuts and all sorts, and it's reset everything. So yeah, I do want to apologize to my audience today as well for being a tad bit late, and of course to you because we've kept you on hold. Obviously you didn't have a power cut at home, so you've been waiting online for us. But thank you for coming. So afne age amar aro shower maze aisla to discuss autism. and you've kindly come back today to further support me with today's discussions. Zara agor show dekhsoina Tara obviously after background zanoina, so afne can you give us some insight into your background and your experience?
Certainly. So my job role is I'm assistant head teacher at a primary school in Redbridge. My responsibilities are looking inclusion, our safeguarding lead and school. So I also deliver teacher training, initial teacher training, and part of the teacher training, the aspects are around the topics we're going to talk about today, inshallah.
Okay, so after to both manchal loge kham khoroin, afne both family support khoroin, and you obviously you provide training for staff in schools. So through all of this, after experience or maze, what would you say positive parenting is?
Positive parenting is being aware of our children. Relationship tahto, communication tahto is very, very important. Earlier and the children are needs tahe, and there's something we in the education sector call Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right at the bottom tahe, then as a human being lagi gore, shelter, khapor, khani dorkhar. Just above that, then love and affection are very important. So bachan sound development lagi, tara confidence, resilience build korba lagi, tara loge relationship taha lagi, goro shanti taha lagi.
Okay, so you talk about parenting approaches when we amrazabla pre-meet horsi before our show. What are the 4 parenting approaches? And yeah, I'll ask you afterwards the rest.
Sure. So there's side parenting approach. Ekta authoritarian. Ekta very dictatorship. Almost kind of I'm recommending to myself amar jakta experience beshi takhe zen ami zela khoi mola khorbai what my way or the highway. And my way is always right, and but chantor jakta view opinion ase that's not taken into consideration. So that's kind of one very, very hard not approach to parenting.
That's quite the traditional approach though in our community, isn't it?
It is and it's research shows that it's probably not the best way forward. I say I'm sure I'm running a traditional approach that has elements of all four I say. So I'm sure it's not just completely this approach. And I know my dad was a very strict person. We had a very strict upbringing, but balance. So the second parenting approach we look permissive. The parents ki rule set khore but follow khore na. Then ami koi mola khoro bat ekbar follow up khormar ba follow up kortam nai ekbar dekh mar bar dekhtam nai. Ekta kita khore hurutain tor boundaries ekta ektare blur khori lai. Bachai buzen azen khotohan ami khortam farmu khotohan ami khortam fartam nai. So they always push boundaries. Our boundary is very important for children to feel safe. Safety lagi boundaries. Zanezan ami khotohan zaitam farmu erofre my consequences might be timeout or I lose out on my games or whatever. Ekta consequence tahe, but ekta lagi consistency taha lagi parenting on maze.
That must cause some like hurutar maze to ekta confusion hotto pari jay na nije o ekdin amare o boundary de hoyse ar ami cross koray amar ekta punishment de hoyse aiz ami same jinish korsi but amar kono punishment on na, so ekta confusion থাকে
আর বাচ্চানতে আমরা যাটা কইবা দুষ্টামি করে দিও করে একবার কথা শুনে না, বা অ্যাকচুয়ালি আমরা যদি রিফ্লেক্ট করি না নি বাচ্চার দোষ না, এখানে আমরা একবার এখন কই আর বার আর ওখান কই, সো বাচ্চা they aren't sure about what's going on. So consistency is একটা very important. এখন সময় আছে in the same family, especially আমরা extended family ভিতরে থাকলে যেন মা বাপে এক approach থাকে, দাদা দাদির অন্য approach থাকে। আর আউটা হইলো কি আমরা মনে করি মায়া করি আর আউটা হইলো কি ড্যামেজিং, বাচ্চা এখানে বুঝে না বাউন্ডারি হয়, এগেন কনফিউশন শুরু হয়। বাউন্ডারি সেট করা মানে না যে বাচ্চার তো লাগে মায়া নাই, বাচ্চার তো লাগে মায়া কোনো সময় কমে না। ইনফ্যাক্ট বাচ্চার তোর কনফিডেন্স, রেজিলিয়েন্স, তারার আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং যেটা এখানে খুব বেশি আরো বাড়ায়, আরো শক্তি দেয়।
Of course. It's discipline, isn't it? Discipline is needed in all aspects of life. So discipline না থাকলে তো আমরা you know আমরা এই বাচ্চারে আমরা বড় করতে পারতাম না। তারা সোসাইটির মাঝে লাইক বালা মানুষ হইয়া উঠতে পারতো না ডিসিপ্লিন না থাকলে।
No, definitely. Because আমরা হয়ে assertive discipline.
Okay.
Yeah. So next approach হইলো গিয়ে আমরা uninvolved parents that are too busy with life and making money and business, not necessarily বাচ্চাগুলোকে যেন communication একটা থাকে often very poor থাকে, very functional থাকে. So like যে জিনিস লাগে is the day to day ওটা no homework করছ নি বা there is never quality time থাকে না। তো বাচ্চা তোমার দিন কি লাগেছে আইজ স্কুল কি আসিল বা লাগেছে নি প্রবলেম হইছে নি প্রবলেম ইনে কয়েকটা বহুত জিনিস আছে একটা ওটা মিসিং থাকে। সময় কাটাই না বাচ্চাগুলোকে, বাচ্চাগুলোকে সময় কাটানি is paramount, very important. কারণ বাচ্চা লোকে আপনি রিলেশনশিপ বিল্ড করবা সময় কাটাইয়া সব সময় নানি if it's always a formal and again a traditional parenting যেটা নানি হুরতা মাত্তো না ইয়া করতো না একটা এফেক্ট করে বাচ্চারে। So it's you know we have to be very mindful and careful. Final যেটা the one I promote, the positive parenting, এটারে হয় authoritarian. So আপনার authoritative থাকবা, আপনি confidently মাতিবা, assertively মাতিবা, আপনি as a parent আপনি focus করবা, very clearly setting boundaries. একটার মাঝে থাকে positive relationships with বাচ্চার লগে। একটার মানি নাই যে আপনি বাচ্চার ফ্রেন্ড হয়ে গেছেন গিয়া, you can be friendly with the child but not necessarily the friend. There's a big difference there. আর আপনি যতটুকু boundaries set করবা এতটুকু বাচ্চার লগে মাতিবা, কিতা লাগে আমি কইছি তুমি রাইট 12টা 12 যাইতে পারতা না, কিতা লাগে আমি কইছি তুমি তাকে ফাল মারলে দুঃখ। এখানে একটা reason দিলে consequence দিলে understanding থাকলে বাচ্চা then they're more likely to adhere to what's been said. And also a parenting approach মাঝে আপনি আছে বাচ্চার feeling the জিকাইবা না, বাচ্চার feeling is taken into consideration as well, and that's
like a priority. Is that correct? My thinking in that kind of approach is that you put the child forward, বাচ্চার feelings একটা ওটা হইলো priority and ওটা তাকি will work on it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So
দিলাই তারাও ফিল করলো যে আমার ইম্পর্টেন্ট, আমার ফিলিং টাইম ফয়লা কনসিডার করা।
Joy and বাচ্চার values is the why na বাচ্চার nani the problem why they will seek it elsewhere, and there's an other topics all hoislas and grooming and things like that. It comes or it crosses over onto those lines, and because আপনার বাচ্চা লোকে যদি রিলেশনশিপ থাকে না, বাচ্চা যদি লাভ ফিল করে না, আপনি মনে করেন আমি মায়া করি আর আমি কাপড় চোপড় দিয়ে আর খাওয়াই আর ইয়ে করি আর কিতা করতাম। বাচ্চার this day and age আমরা is encourage একটা generation নানি এই generation or the life and the world they rapidly change হইছে, আর কোনো generation অত rapid change দেখছন না। So even as a teacher myself who as a safeguarding lead and would focus on e-safety and everything, I can't keep on top of the changes in technology and social media platforms. And it you know, as I don't expect parents to be able to do that. But you know, একবারে ছোট বাচ্চা দেখবা ফোন কিটা swipe করতে জানে, কোন গেম খেলাইতে জানে।
I know my 1-year-old niece, only one, she knows how to swipe.
Absolutely.
I'm like, it's amazing like how they know this, you know.
I've seen children take the phone up to the parents' face to unlock the phone. So you know, and very young children as well, because they understand this and so life. And I go back to my own childhood when we had the dial telephones where you had to dial the numbers and you had a lock on it, lock takto, because it was costly making calls just to keep tabs on things. And as a youth growing up myself, if I wanted to make contact with my friends, I had to go through their parents, and I had to put on my most polite voice, Assalamu alaikum sasi bala sonni, you know, umukasonyono, and then, you know, and I get through to my friend. These days, that's all bypassed. They go directly to communication. It's not just the friends, anyone.
anyone.
access
সারাক্ষণ
the
games
access
they communicate করে. It's not even like you don't need a phone line in that sense. Games খেলাইয়া তারা, you know, I see my nephews, you know, sillar mate rasher, you know, you're like, who are they talking to? And they're obviously on their headphones, you know.
yeah
But it's amazing how time has moved, and it continues moving very fast, you know. I mean, what reception year one children are being taught, you know, how to use a laptop. We
Yeah.
didn't see a computer till we were like year 7, year 8, you know, in that sense.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah, no, absolutely, and part of the reason then and I'm sure every school agenda was and e-safety because এখন সময় আছে না আমরা কই না ওটা দিতাম না তখন but actually they know it, they learn it, it's there, সবখানে আছে. So rather than tarare then is জিনিসটাকে হরায়া রাখা, it's about training them and educating them how to use it safely. So it's about being safe online. And how to be safe on their conduct, their communication, their interaction, their commerce. Can online safety lagi? I know of a child who, you know, well, few children actually, but I'll give you an example. Yeah, but online gaming korto on a regular basis.
okay.
And but attendance drop hoise. এখন attendance গুলো drop হইছে, part of the safeguarding policy এখানে আমরা যখন inquiry করব এখানে বাচ্চা স্কুল আনে এখানে মা কইরা কি বাচ্চা খালি কয় যেন শরীর বালা নাই না সেই না, so আমরা medical evidence চাইছি, medical evidence তখন provide করা যায় না. So but to cut a long story short, আমরা unpick করিয়া দেখি বাচ্চা has been groomed online by a pedophile from America who then took advantage of the child, got him to take his clothes off, because what they do তারা কিতা করে, তারা vulnerability এখানে they befriend the children or to grooming যেটা কইছেন, the groom করে befriend করে trust মানে he pretended to be a 10-year-old boy as well.
Wow.
But then he was a 45-year-old man. So আমরা একটা unpick করাই, it took us a long time, but then we reported to the police. Police then they reported to CEOPS, which is the international organization for online safety. Tarakita said they router after follow Korea, there are signals of follow Korea, and they arrested a man, 45-year-old man in the States. So it's because the time zones are different all over the world, and the social media platform is open 24 hours a day. It never sleeps. So আপনার বাচ্চা বেটো তাকিয়া হুতি for notify to পারবো, we'll be communicating, interacting with people all over the world, and that communication interaction সবসময় safe থাকে না. And I would say 80% of the time is unsafe interaction, and that is a very high percentage. Gaming in particular, but they have friends of friends. So I mean, you know, I'm just encouraged for don't befriend anyone who you don't know in person. But the problem is when I'm not friend or the friend amare add kore, I think, oh, it's my friend's friend, the safe
think
person.
you're safe. Yeah.
Because naturally bachola sinta hobo, but actually we friend rekiban trick korea as someone is an adult.
Of course.
And there's research that's been done on online platforms or children on platform. The majority are actually adults who pretend to be children. That's the risk. So you wouldn't take your child to the park and
leave them with strangers.
You wouldn't. Then why would you do the same online? And actually,
I think online is worse because it's worldwide. You don't know a face, you don't know an address, you don't know nothing, you know. Yes, they can't physically take your child, they can't physically kidnap your child, but what damage are they causing emotionally?
Yeah, and the emotional damage.
Now, but sometimes they do, you know, they tell these children to go meet them somewhere and whatever, and from there it starts off a whole different cycle and a whole different cycle of abuse in that sense. But we'll tackle that. What I've done with today's show is I've tried to put it in bits so it's easier for our audience to digest. So if we go back to parenting, what are the risk factors? So which people are at risk? So Amran Manchar Maze, I know everybody is at risk of you know, not having good parenting skills, but obviously there's a factor and kuno area maze ekটু risk higher থাকে.
There's a number of different things, and as in parenting or approach the authoritative parenting that this is the best approach. And when we take the other approaches, we do put our children at risk because we're not paying attention to them. And as social animals, as human beings, we are social animals. We will seek that that love, that wanting, that but their perception is different. They'll seek it elsewhere. So the kind of the key risks, I would say, in our society today, in the UK in particular, poverty is a key risk. মানুষ যারা কি কষ্ট করে পয়সা দিয়ে কষ্ট করে টানাটানি করে কেন ওই কি তা হুরতাইন তো সবসময় কম্পিটিশন থাকে সবসময় সাইম বালা ফিন্দিতা অ্যাডিডাস ট্রেনার ফিন্দিতা নাইকি ফিন্দিতা these are very expensive, you know, and very either huruta auto resilient now because we live in a society where the rich and poor live side by side. They go to the same school. You know, the haves and the have nots, and they will go to the same school. So but friendship আমার PlayStation 5-6 আছে, I've got 10 games whatever, আর আপনার বাচ্চা কিবা নাই তো এখন চাইবো আইয়া তুকাইব হইব. So there is no easy fix for that, but to be জানা যেন না mindfulness, then poverty আমার বাচ্চার এফেক্ট হতে পারে, then বাচ্চা লগে মাথা রিলেশনশিপ থাকা, that's why it's so important আপনি একটা ট্যাকল করতে পারবা. আরো একটা জিনিস আমি on a daily basis আমি deal করি is domestic violence and abuse in my role as a safeguarding lead. আমরা মনে করি না, বুঝি না, মনে করি বাচ্চা অন্য রুমও, বাচ্চা শুনেন না, বাচ্চা দেখেন না, বা বাচ্চা লাগি is very very damaging, very dangerous. মা বাপ হইলা গিয়ে বাচ্চা লাগি সবচেয়ে important and safest adults in the world. as a মা বাপে দরবার করেন আর মায়ের করেন, একটা বাচ্চারে খুব বেশি ইম্প্যাক্ট করে, একটা বাচ্চারে mentally impact করে, and it's something we call ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. That it is basically trauma or toxic trauma that a bacha brain development re effect kore. A bacha inte reaction era behavior impact kore, tarar confidence impact kore, tarar lekha pora shopta impact kore, friendship or maze impact kore, schoolo impact kore, relationship building or maze impact kore. Amra and unfortunately majority of the families I deal with amra community taki khane ekta understanding as than ami jamai ami beta ami mallam to kito hilo amar khot ami jala hui molla kortai ekta. We don't live in this world anymore. We don't live in this society, and ekta damage cause kore khane amra. Even if we look at it from an Islamic perspective, the woman has a very high status within the family, within the home, and we have to value them. They are our mothers, they are our daughters, they are our sisters. So আমি অন্যজনের আমার বউরে বাদ ব্যবহার করি যদি নানি আমার ফুরি অন্যজনের বাদ ব্যবহার করব. So I have to set standards.
And it's not only that, but also your children, your daughters in fact, will accept it to be normal, because আমি সারা জীবন দেখি আইছি ওলা আমার মায়া ওলা চলছইন, আমার সাসি, আমার খালা, আমার সব ওলা চলি আইছইন. So of course it's normal. So abuse করলে খিতা, there's no need to stand up to it. And when we go back to children, we think তারা অন্য রুমের মাঝে আসইন, তারা শুনেন না, দেখেন না. Children's minds are like sponge. তুমি যদি 2-3 doors away কিছু মাতো হুনো, তারা somehow subconsciously they have picked it up, you know. And I find that with all the children around us, you know, you think tara samne ita matilam na darlamo na khane matilam inge hunlo kila, you know what I mean. So they do pick up, and they pick up on your body languages, they pick up on even stress levels. I think sometimes they understand that there's something going on even though you're not saying anything. So you know, we do have to be mindful that actually children are a lot more aware than they make out. Tara TV by this awat takhta fare, gamer maze takhta fare, but their eyes and ears is everywhere.
Tara ma bapar mukhe di saile khoito ma bapar dorbar hosonni na na.
Yes.
And the goror environments that like tense takhbo it you know, it doesn't take them, like you say, it doesn't take long for them to pick these things up. The research shows that unborn babies if the mother goes through domestic abuse or violence, that baby is affected by trauma.
Wow.
Because mar feelings ekta, mar anxieties ekta, mar the kostos ekta hoise nani ekta bacha is passed on. There's a lot of research that's been done around that, and it's proven to be true. So ekoshomay ase nani the amra koitam pari na, because there's a part of our brain, because the baby is even inside the mother's womb, the baby's brain is developing, and the feelings and emotions, all of that is developing in there, and they inherit a lot of that from the mother. So if a mother is happy and content, the baby it develops well and it progresses well.
Yes.
The health checks for the expectant mothers, and they can tell, those mothers who are vulnerable, they give them extra attention because development effect. So we've got to be so mindful of that, and we've now our community maze, we have to, when our children can go in the wrong path, and it's not necessarily always our fault, but often it's very important that I'm unpick and where did I go wrong, or what could I have done differently. Because self-reflection is very important. And it's very easy to point fingers at someone else's, or friend, and that's actually
what I was going to come on to, because a part of positive parenting is also looking at your child's friendship groups. Who are they surrounding themselves with? Obviously I'm not 100% balani badni, but you can pick up on their lifestyles, you can pick up on the way they talk, the way they act, their behavior. So in my experience, I found that also connecting with my child's friends and their parents helped me figure out who they were and whether they were a good influence in the child's life or not. And obviously, alhamdulillah, so far he's been quite good. He's had a good set of friends, and they're the like-minded people and things like that. So often what I also see in my day job is that we have groups of parents that come in, they're on their phone, they don't talk to the children, they don't look at who are they spending time with, who are they talking to, what are they talking about. Or parent to dekhte lage dor khore or whatever, or parent to lage bala manush. They're not absorbing the environment around them to make that judgment. And then obviously your child is being sent into school for 6.5, 7 hours a day in school, and they're spending time with these children, So I suppose as a parent, what I'm trying to say is that we also have to almost befriend their environment and their people around them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Amina, if I may, something you said about greeting, in schools, greeting children, it's total powerful, honest, and as a senior leader, I'm often out in the playground and I just observe, to make sure everything's okay. I observe parents and the interaction with the children. How was your day? What went well? This is how this is a relationship. This is how you build it. It's not rocket science.
Yes.
And it's fine using those opportunities. I was in trouble today. Why were you in trouble? I did this wrong. Right. Okay. Next time, what will you do? But this is how we build resilience. We're teaching them how to problem solve. You don't necessarily go in there with old guns blazing and say, and out or wrong, because we're teaching our children, we're role models for them. Every situation needs us to be aggressive and react badly to it. And that's not good. That's not conducive for children's development.
And of course, we have to teach them that there are rules and restrictions. And yes, if you have done something that you're not meant to do, you will be pulled up for it. I'm not going to go into school and fight the teachers or the senior leadership that, why have you pulled up my child for something? And why haven't you done anything about this and that? There's procedures, there's protocols, follow them. You can't say, detention. Of course, that's also discipline, and home and school have to work together to build also that positive parenting element.
Sure. And there's a really important thing you said now, about discipline. Discipline should not be an overreaction to anything. It should be calm. You should be calm. You should be collective. You should. I'm sorry, my Amina has just come into the room. My youngest is calling.
That's okay. That's okay. It's not a problem. Okay. It's not a problem.
Sorry. So reacting, responding appropriately, being calm about situations. They may.
It's okay. What we'll do is we're going to take a short break and we'll be back soon. Viewers, we're going to take a quick break.
শহরের যান্ত্রিকতার আড়ালে সিলেট সিটির বাইরে ওসমানীনগরের উসমানপুর ইউনিয়নে কিছু প্লট ভাড়া অথবা বিক্রি হবে।
এই জমিগুলোর পাশেই পাবেন কেন্দ্রীয় মসজিদ, স্কুল, মাদ্রাসা ও ক্লিনিকের সুযোগ সুবিধাসমূহ।
কর্পোরেট কোম্পানির বিজ্ঞাপনের বিলবোর্ড অথবা বাড়ি তৈরি করার সুনির্দিষ্ট স্থান এগুলোই।
আজই ভাড়া নিন অথবা ক্রয় করুন আপনার কাঙ্ক্ষিত জমি।
মাদারবাজার, আজিজপুর, গহরপুর, চণ্ডীপুল, মাদারবাজার ভায়া মাদ্রাসা বাজার, মাদারবাজার ভায়া দয়ামের, ময়নাবাজার ভায়া বালাগঞ্জ এলজিইডি রোডের পাশে সিলেট ওসমানীনগর ময়নাবাজার সংলগ্ন রাঙাপুর গ্রামে 13 শতক, বেড়াখাল গহরপুর গ্রামে 16 শতক, 26 শতক, 9 শতক ও 21 শতক জমি ভাড়া ও বিক্রি হবে।
ক্রয় অথবা ভাড়া নেওয়ার জন্য আজই কল করুন অথবা হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ করুন 01714226528 এই নম্বরে।
Welcome back, viewers. As you know, Amra Shob, we are working parents, so of course sometimes Amra Hurutare, we also have to sort them out. So that was very cute, by the way. Just love how she's running into you.
Apologies.
No,
and
you
thank
don't need to
yeah.
apologize. Honestly, you're giving us your time, so of course, you know, we're taking you away from your children for an hour, so you need to do what you need to do. So okay, coming back to sort of how people blame অন্য মানুষের ব্লেম করেন, অন্য হুরুতারে ব্লেম করেন, অন্য ফ্যামিলিরে ব্লেম করেন যে ও মানুষের লগে তাকিয়া নষ্ট হয়ে গেছে, অমুকে ওলা চলাফেরা করে এদায়, you know, ওটা শিকিলিছে। Is that the correct approach? What do you think? I know there is some element of peer pressure and who you hang around with and iktar একটা influence থাকে. But from home, how can we manage that from home?
So it influence take definitely. So you know, like you said earlier, then you know you got to befriend the children's friends as well, get to know them. Era khanozar kita sulafira kore you know. I'm going to give you an example. My eldest, who's 17 now, for her birthday, she wanted to go out with her friends to eat in a restaurant. I said, fine, I can take you there if you want. And she was happy. So I waited outside. I was like a cab driver that day. And then I picked them up. And, you know, it's because often what we do, we push them away and we just like, the relationships with the bacha loge takhena, communication takhena, bacha will seek it elsewhere, and whether it's with their friends or someone who's influencing them in other ways, they will seek it somewhere else, because ekhon tara grower, developer, tara understanding developer, and they're learning the world around them, and this is part of growing up. So unless I'm a guide for you on the straight path, you know, despite with all your best efforts and you've done everything and your child still can go off the rails, but that's just, you know, Allah hukums atakhwan, and you've tried your best. You can't, you know, you can't blame yourself. Some children do end up like that, but in many of the situations when we reflect on Amra parenting nanny, because I know actually I could have done things differently, and we talk about vicious cycles, and that's a really important thing. And you touched on that earlier. I mean, when you spoke about বাচ্চা যদি দেখি আমার ফুরিয়ে যদি দেখে না নি আমি আমার বউরে মারাদরি দরবার করিয়া আমার ফুরিয়ে will expect that to be the norm. It's like that. আমরা usually think the way we were raised by our parents was the right way, and we have to do the same with our children. And this is right at the beginning. I mean, the world has changed very fast, very rapidly. We live in a different world, so we can't raise them the same way. You can't raise, you know, children the same way because the world around them is very different.
It's very different, and of course what we have to remember is amrar ma bafdabla aisla tarar family dynamics it was very different. Tarar education level was very different. Their stress was completely different, you know. Where now I'm a technology yoke, and you know, obviously technologies move fast, we touched on that, but the whole life around us, if I even look like 10 years ago, not that long, but 10 years ago, from 10 years to now, I was just speaking to someone yesterday, and I was talking about how even the use of WhatsApp has changed so much. Like we can quickly send a video of our child doing something nice, or the teachers are sending something to us through technology, you know, through these apps. You look, this is what your child has done today. Our parents didn't have that. Tarar I opportunity asil na. Plus tarar I can understanding asil na যে okay, in depth আমার হুরুতার লগে আমি ও রিলেশনশিপ বিল্ড করতাম ওই বখান হতো তারা গেছে ওটা আছিল survival. They were surviving. যে ইনকাম আছিল ও ইনকাম থাকি ৬জন ৫জন ৬জন হুরুতা আছে তারারে সার্ভাইভ করা এর মাঝে আছিল কিতা বাড়িতে পয়সা দিতে হইব, you know what I mean? So their stresses were different. We don't have that. Okay, আমরা অন্য stress. So we can't blame them, but of course we have to understand that we have to change.
Absolutely, and that's the thing. You know, I'm not blaming the way our parents raised her son. That was the way. That was
Then it was okay.
Yeah, and it was the way at the time. I mean, the law was different. When I went to school, and I'm considerably older than you, I'm at school. Even in this country, there was, you know, punishment, physical punishment. The teachers used to chuck board rubbers at us for misbehaving.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I make it sound like I'm 100 years old. No, but you know, in the early 80s, late 70s, they did that. So it's not, you know, even this country as a whole, the law has changed. The understanding of how to raise children has changed. You know, it has. I'm not saying it's always the right way, because আমি জানি মানুষের লগে when I speak to parents তারা কই জানি ও বেশি হস দিয়া নষ্ট হয়ে গেছে ইও করা যায় না ওলা করা যায় না ওরা this is why again I keep going down those key basic things: communication and relationship and time. Those three things you have to give them. Have good communication with them, have a good relationship with them, and তারারে সময় দেওয়া লাগে। এই জিনিসটাকে all three are just as important. So the missing থাকেন and the key elements, it falls apart.
And also being, I know we should have some boundaries, like some boundaries, restriction, but in this day and age, আমি যেখান দেখছি my experience, বেশি restriction করিয়া হলেও that's the problem, because তারা rebel করে, তারা দেখে ও আমার friend I don't know, right, 10টা পর্যন্ত 11টা পর্যন্ত বারা থাকে, আমি 7টার ভিতরে আওয়া লাগে, আমারে লইয়া তারা আসইন, আমারে লইয়া ডং করইন, you know, I think some elements of our parenting we have to kind of let go a little bit. আমরা কিছু সারিয়া দিতে হইব, কিছু সারিয়া না দিলে of course বাদ ফতে যায় যদি, yes of course jump in, but তারার আরেকটা element আছে যে they get bullied, they, you know, মানুষ লইয়া আসইন ডং ডাং করইন, so to minimize that we have to see what's happening around us, what's happening in their friendship group, and obviously তারা বালা মানুষ এরা right 9টা 10টা পর্যন্ত বারা থাকে, okay সিনেমাত গেছে, বোলিং গেছে, whatever it is, but back to আইছে আইয়া অন্য তো আর কিছু করেন না।
Yeah, no, it can absolutely right. Hoshma allowances manain lage, we might not agree with it. Funny ze badidar like o badiza walage, and you know, if you're going against the wave, then you're in. It doesn't work. You have to you're swimming against the tide, so you have to go with the tide
Yes.
to make it work.
Yes. So I also one thing, like, you know, with like DV, domestic violence mati, like obviously a man and a woman, but domestic violence can also happen between parents and children. So when we look at that, you know, obviously that's a topic in its own, but what kind of effects does it have on a child's behavior is basically what I'm trying to say.
The impact on the child is really significant. They become, I mean, when I have to deal with it, and children to make disclosures, I mean, or whatever,
Yeah.
and they say no. I said, well, then it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So all you're doing, when we hit children, it shows that we've lost control. Amra nizar control araichi. Amra aggression, amra anger that's overtaken us. We're not in control anymore. We're seeing red, and then we are reacting badly. So again, going back to the fact that we are role models for our children. So tara situation then they're upset or they angry about something, they react badly. So আমরা বললাম হ্যাঁ ওলা দুষ্টামি করে ওটা করে actually they learned it from us. We modeled it for them.
Right.
So it's really
And
important.
then they also তারা তো ও behavior use করে যে siblings থাকে যদি ভাই বোন থাকে যদি
Yeah.
তারা কিছু করলে এগুলো ফট করে তাস করে মারি দিব why
Yeah.
because that's the behavior that they've learnt.
Yeah.
Also there's one other thing that we talked about in our pre-meet is that these days children are so clever, they're so aware of tarar maze tara rights kita responsibilities kita because obviously school he can but sometimes আমরা হুরুতায়ও ছোট জিনিসে বড় করতে পারে তো তারা জানে যে আমি স্কুলে গিয়া যদি আমার মা বাবার কথা কই আমার মারছই ও আমার গালিয়াইছই তাই তাই ট্রাবল ফর বা আমার I don't know latest computer দিছই না আমার আইপ্যাড দিছই না whatever so tantaner trouble of like tantaner punishment করবার দায় আমরা that's the route we're going to take. How can we balance this out? Because what it is what I'm kind of touching on is that okay, under financial difficulties ও থাকতে পারে যে আমরা every month 500-600 pound দিন নয়া gadget লইতাম পারতাম না but how can we then say to our children you know what all reason or die আমরা ফারিয়ান না maybe in 2 months in 3 months আমরা দিমু বা যখন একটা understanding.
Yeah, and you've just I think you've answered your own question, Amina. It's you've got to set targets urtaloge na korta na eventually to diba amra kita kori we either say no or we just give it straight away. I think amra community maze ekta ase but just how this bacha jodi earn করে নানি so even যদি আমার পয়সা থাকে আমি লোকালোক তো একটা ঠিক নাই just how জিনিস বাচ্চায় sense of achievement পাইতো তুমি auto behavior কথা কইরা লেখাপড়া কথা কইরা বাড়াগুড়ানির কথা কইরা ওকে তুমি তোমার টাইম টেবল হইলো গে তুমি by 8 o'clock you need to be home and then by তোমার homework করা লাগে 1 hour every day or whatever the expectations are the rules and expectations that go to একটা বাচ্চা follow করতো একটারে through that they earn the reward which could be whatever that they parentally the gadget or device but again once we bought these for them they need to be monitored very closely. Parental settings need to be put on, otherwise that they become dangerous. Amra galat boyanani bacha they can be doing all sorts of things. Amra hoitam will be none the wiser. There is again another research around the boys in particular accessing pornography, which is impacting on the mental health and the well-being. There is a large percentage of boys and as young as 8-9 who are receiving mental health support to get off. It becomes an addiction. So it's a very worrying and a very sorry sight. I mean, internet development it's been absolutely fantastic in opening up the world to us all, but it's also it's opened up lots of risks and dangers for us as well and for our children. I mean, but as adults, myself included, who didn't grow up with mobile phones as such, but whenever I've got the chance, I'm on my phone.
Yes.
Looking at emails and things like that. So again, it's our role modeling for our children. So we've got to be really mindful of that as well.
So slowly, I'm going to move on to our next topic, which is kind of it's all tied in, but আমরা community মাঝে আমরা self-harm, suicide, এটার কথা আমরা মাতি না. So all of that is interlinked with what we're discussing today. So obviously it can start with positive parenting যদি থাকে না ওটাও লিঙ্ক হইতে পারে, domestic abuse থাকলেও লিঙ্ক থাকতে পারে, online যদি কিছু থাকে ওটা থাকেও হইতে পারে. There's one other bit of it is that আমরা কিলা identify করতাম যে আমরা বাচ্চাইন or a young adults তারা self harm করে.
So one of the symptoms is that বাচ্চাইন তোর থাকবো bruising থাকতে পারে, marking থাকতে পারে, যেখানে দরকার যে কি হইছে না হইছে, how did that happen? And I to give you an example. I'm working with a family at the moment where the child, again, family maze ma bape violence now, but there's a lot of domestic disputes. So I would say abuse. So ma bape shob shmo darbar khoroin, sometimes about money, sometimes about how they raised how they have different approaches with the children. I'm not approving of this. No, it's okay. So different approaches about confused. Now, this child sees their parents arguing all the time. Now, she's resorted to self-harming. So one of the things she did initially was elastic bands as in tightly wristband.
Oh wow.
Bandia. So it's that this is psychological. It's that feeling of that it's a pain there. The tightness allows them to. It almost gives them a sense of belonging, not belonging. Sorry, a sense of existence. So and this child is their knees and the thighs. She was burning her legs, little marks on there. Again, it's all linked. The thing is, if your child is in that situation, best initially look in and to speak to the GP and to get CAMS, child and adolescent mental health services, because it's kind of gone off. It's past the threshold for us to be able to support them.
Right.
It becomes very complicated, and it needs that specialist approach. And the risk is, neglect if you don't tackle it, then there's a risk of the child doing something very serious or at risk of losing their life.
Yes.
The self-harm becomes very, very serious. And if we do come across research, again, I do back my things up with a lot of research, could do a lot of reading around these things, is not to say to them stop, but to say to them, to talk to them why, how, when. So find out. Don't if we get angry with them and we lose it with them, then they'll do it even more, and they'll hide it and do it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So before we move on to county line grooming and things like that, we're going to take a short break, and we will be back for the next bit. Control room, would you like to take a break? Okay, possibly not. Okay, we'll carry on. We'll carry on. Okay, so if we talk about county line grooming or manikita, what is it?
Okay, so county lines and grooming. I'm news as I could be share as county lines. County line or manulo is in so we've got our counties like Essex, London,
so different
areas. So the it's basically drug areas, and so drug dealers take children from one area to another area, and they basically because children are harder to detect, harder to prosecute, and harder to catch as well. So and the purpose and they're aware of these things. So face so and they do a lot deliberate grooming. So secondary schools in particular are a place of target. They'll entice them with gifts or favors.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so okay, I'll give you the latest iPhone, take it. I'll buy you new trainers or befriend look, trouble delay, I'll look out for you, I'll sort them out. So again, befriend
relationship build isn't it? I'm my friend, I'm looking out for you.
Relationship and trust build and then this is a common tactic they use. They give you something, can you hold on to this for me, parcel or whatever, and but they are so bachara to parcel dia ko mogudoru ya so 5 minute lagi jaibo gya arogya ya bachar ste ko ta tak ni bogya zure zare khaiya ni bogya naile mariya ni bo to leya jaibo gya, and then the first one comes back, oh, I left my parcel with you, where is it? Oh, I've been mugged or someone's taking out again. There was £1,000 in there, you owe me £1,000 now. So it's a trap for it. So gifts dia or a situation dia tara bachchan trap kore, then the children can't see a way out. এখন way out দেখে না, এখন তো more and more এখন তো তারা আর একটা জিনিস করে ব্ল্যাকমেইল করবো, কইব লোক তুমি অলরেডি আমার লাগি ড্রাগ ডিলিং করে লিছো, তুমি ওটাকে অন্য নিছো, পুলিশে কইলে পুলিশে বান্ধিব, or they make threats such as, look, I know where you live, I'm going to hurt your family, I'm going to hurt your brother, hurt your sister, mom, dad, whatever. Ota hoya, and they do that. And it's when we were growing up, drug dealers had a different image. You saw the blacked out cars and blacked out windows. And nowadays it's not them, and they were younger men in the 20s, they're much younger, so we're looking at 14-15-year-olds, and that's because 14-15-year-olds are very ruthless, and there are consequences in takorena, and they take lots more risks, so and police it's again harder to prosecute. So Heranani, the older generation of drug dealers now, they've gone into hiding, they've gone underground, but they're using the younger boys to do their dealing and dirty work for them. They use bicycles, e-scooters, what I use for the distributor. I know recently on the news the level of aggression and violence from these boys is very, very high. And baseball bat because, and again, tara nizo status para. The more aggressive and violent I am, the higher up the rank,
stronger and bigger and bolder I am, of course. So can that happen to anybody of any age? Is it predominantly just, like secondary children, or, I mean, I've heard of stories of primary age children, year 5, year 6 children even getting involved.
It can affect any child of any age, I know of a mother who's a drug dealer and was using her 5-year-old to do drugs in his backpack. We in this line of work that we do, we hear all these different scenarios. So yeah, you're absolutely right. In a age limit now, often the kind of the leaders have become the 14, 15, 16-year-olds. So they're the kind of ones and little, because there's a very kind of structured hierarchy.
Organized,
yeah.
Gang, isn't it?
Yeah. Hierarchy job task, you'll have someone who's a lookout.
Like a business, like how we run a business or how you run a school or whatever, you have your hierarchies and you drip it down. Wow, they have their own roles and responsibilities.
No, definitely. I'm gonna say, because they're so young, the violence has increased quite a lot. So that's to be mindful. And again, if things to look out for as parents, if you're or often there are drug dealing involved, there are duta phone. Once their personal phone, once their burner phone, there are drug dealing phone. But not everyone. Not everyone.
Okay. All right, never mind.
And Zeranani, they go missing for a long time. And it's unexplained. Have you got lots of money at home, Amina?
I don't know. You can help me look for it if you want.
So they have lots of money. All of a sudden they've got large amount of cash, and often cash. They've got 2 phones. They're behaving odd. There are friendships that friends there, and you don't really see them. You don't know them, or often new group of friends, because often like their traditional friends they move away from them and they make new friends, and it's these new friends who are influenced with drug dealing and stuff like that. So there's little things we can look out for.
Aren't they? In the latest trends, latest gear, latest phone, even tara gari dekhleo khoi bai, 16-17 bochoror bachchay, 20,000, 50,000 or gari salar. How is that possible?
Yeah, no, absolutely, those kind of things. As mothers and fathers, we turn a blind eye to it. I've known families that have done that, and the crime doesn't pay. It's as simple as that. But future, so what will happen? End up getting caught by the police, and that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario is they'll get hurt, and
They'll end up killed
and
or
end up killed or
yeah,
end up dead in the streets. And these are facts of life. We hear it all the time on the
all
news.
the time. Yeah.
And and I've had children I've taught many years ago who are adults now, and some are in prison. And I know of one young man who's killed someone else. And when I saw it on the news, I just couldn't believe it. I was half expecting it because of the way he was being raised,
You
but
can
I
almost
still found it
predict some of
difficult.
it, isn't it? Yeah, okay. So if we move on to like online safety, we spoke about it a little bit, but how can we ensure that আমরা বাচ্চাইন safe আসইন online as parents? আমরা maybe কোনো audience some audience আসইন তারা বুঝেন না যে ইলা restriction আছে বা জো আছে. Can you touch on that a little bit and tell us how's it going?
Certainly. So আমরা নানি বাচ্চাইনতে নানি the social media platforms that are nani, they're very dangerous. Even there are nani যেটা আছে নানি লাগে they're designed for children. Like I think there's one called Little Penguins or something, but it nani often it's pedophiles. They disguise themselves as children and they go onto these platforms. And those online games such as Roblox, and it's a very common one. Again,
Yes.
there are adults on there who pose as children.
Children.
Yeah. And
what I've done with my little ones and like my nieces, nephews, I said to them, like, if anyone comes on Roblox, there's this thing that they ask for Robux, which is like your parents buy you it with their money and then you can transfer it to someone else. And they were so good about it. I was so impressed that tara এই situation to deal করতে কিলা তারা জানে. So tara এক game ওর মাঝে সব কিনতে খেলাইরা. You can go into each other's worlds and stuff. And there was someone on there like literally threatening them for Robux. And straight away, what did they do? All 3-4 of them tara report দৌড়িয়ালো এসে আমার টাইম. Oh, look, this person, I think it's a little boy, he's asking for my Robux, and and they all ganged up on this person and they literally got rid of him from the game.
Absolutely, and that's the right thing to do. And often sometimes you can get the opposite, and in those situations there'll be adults who offer Robux or credits, whatever they're called, and they do it the other way around. So they say, I'll give you some of this, so it's all right.
They build that friendship.
Yeah, and again, that's the grooming aspect of it online. So and so the things that we can do as parents is like parental restrictions and reply for making sure devices don't go to bed with the children, making sure we check the history, but game and more importantly than the shara checks children are so clever they'll find a way around it. But
they'll just go and delete the history delete. They're so clever these days. It's unbelievable. They're a step ahead of us,
Absolutely.
all the time. I
goes
reckon,
back.
like my experience, what I found is that if we talk to children openly, I know some people find that really awkward. They're like, how can you talk to children so openly about these issues and these things? I'm like, but if I don't, someone else will give them the wrong information. So আমি যদি কান মাতি না, আমি যদি আমার নিজর যারা হুরুত আছেন তারারে যদি আমি বুঝাই না, আরক মান চাইয়া বুঝাইবো, right way বুঝাইবো না wrong way বুঝাইবো, you don't know. So having those open and frank conversations is sometimes the best way.
It's always the best way, I would say, because like you said, যদি আমরা নিজেই খাইনা বাচ্চা ধরে বাচ্চা খানো equal, they learn it in the playground.
Yeah.
And they're learning it from other children, or they're learning it from their own kind of person.
Our age people will find that overwhelming. Or how can you talk to your child? You're talking about body parts or sexual abuse, or how grooming can happen and what happens, and how to look out for the signs. I'm like, you know what? Amar shoromubala, এখন যদি আমি control করি লাই in my own house and my child can see those patterns and recognize those patterns. I prefer that over them being groomed by somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely, because the risks are there, the dangers are there, so we can't deny that the dangers aren't there. Just because it hasn't come to our child yet, we think they're okay. It happens to everyone else but us. We have to, everyone, including myself, doesn't matter how much knowledge I have about raising children, how much understanding I have about online safety. My children are just as much risk as any other child. So is to be mindful. And again, it goes to that the relationship and the communication. I'm not doing matinais in Ishani can hoina educate horina bachantore. And I know RSC we're not covering that RSC curriculum. Lots of parents oppose that, but I mean, if they don't learn it in the classroom, they learn it in the playground.
Of course.
So
that's
it has
the thing that I say.
So it's so important that we work with our children. We have that relationship. We're friendly with them, not necessarily the friend. We have that trusting relationship with them. And if they have a problem, there's a trusting relationship. No problem. They know they can trust us.
Yes.
If we react badly every time they come up with us a problem, hey, you know, all of those old-fashioned sayings, you know, marilimu, and sometimes something that is initially quite small will then blow out of proportion. So it might start off with something like, oh, someone gave me a pair of trainers, or you know, and you could nip it in the bud straight away, say, no, we feel dilao. You can sort it out. But because that child doesn't trust you to react in the right way, that child's going to hide that from you. And then trainer talk about the Forsha talk about the package talk about the drug dealing, after, and then gets to a point where you find out because the police are knocking on your door, and you're like, you know, and then actually you've chosen to turn a blind eye at that time. It's you've chosen not to see the obvious when it was happening. Or and then again, I'm not pointing fingers. We don't know something. We don't if you don't know what you don't know. End of. So you know, inshallah, amra awareness bare, amra ota jinish buzle and we have to have relationships with our children.
A classic example that I want to touch on is, you know, when children school maze tarar bullying hoy, so aro khurutai tara loge lage tara loge jo kore, what I used to hear is, oh, tumi kita khorso gotike tumar loge lagse. But that response would straight away shut down the child, because arokbar jodi oya jay ei bachcha ai ama bafre khoita na because kita tumi amar blame korba, actually ami kichu khorsi na but amar blame korba. But these days I know people are understanding it a bit more. I'm not saying it's completely, you know, fixed, but I'm just trying to go back on when we were children, or when we heard our friends and our parents, you know, communicate with each other. It was totally different, you know.
And it's again, you're absolutely right. So that like it's the wrong kind of communication. You're blaming the child, you're accusing the child, rather than trying to find out from a kilo. You say, you know. And again, these are opportunities where we say to them, okay, next time kita khurbai, did you report it to the teacher? Have you spoken to someone about it? So we're teaching them life skills, you know, and when we're not around, they will know how to deal with situations. Because, and again, it all goes back to, I know you talking about earlier on, mental health and self-harm. All of these things are interlinked. So for us, as parents, I'm really looking to start off with that positive parenting, and kind of the main topic of your show, the positive parenting. And the positive parenting, if we can get that right, or we try hard to get that right, inshallah, everything else follows, and and it's easier. And I know we spoke about the other topics because that shows that impact of the lack of positive parenting and what it can lead to.
It's a domino effect. If one thing doesn't work, it breaks down the other thing as well. So what I'll do is, obviously we're coming towards the end of our show, but I know some of our viewers have been commenting. Samad, he's a loyal viewer, and he's made various lots of comments, and great kind comments, and he's saying it's a wonderful show. He's saying it's an informative program. Anan is saying the fourth version of parenting is a combination of the first three. Striking the right balance is key. There will never be a version there will never be one version, and will be relative to each family and dynamic, which is correct. Obviously, we can pick and choose which bit works for us. We're not saying one approach is the only approach you should use. Situation জিনিস বুঝিয়া তুমি ও approach use করতে হইব. Okay. And then Anan is saying again, I think it's hugely challenging for parents that are separated and are trying to implement discipline coherently. Additionally, kids also tend to use parents one against another to serve an agenda. Have you seen that?
I have seen that. I see that a lot. And the best way for that is for the parents to understand, both parents to understand actually the child, regardless of our relationship or where we are now, we both love this child. This is our child. So having communication very clearly and approaching things in a sensible way is the right way. So even in a household where parents might be quarreling for whatever reason, I advise parents to say, look, talk to your child together and reassure them, yes, as mum and dad, we're going through a difficult time, things aren't going well for us, but that changes nothing for you. And it's not your fault, because the danger is, and in most cases, children blame themselves, because when we have argued with our spouses, who do we talk about often? Our children, don't we?
Yes.
So they misunderstand that.
Your only link then becomes the child, isn't it? And you're hearing things through the child, or it might be that you put one thing in place because they're grounded there. Phone news because you done something, but whole parent phone news he parent that was put in place. So I think even though if you separate, and even if it is a bad separation, in terms of parenting your child, you have to communicate and you have to let each other know what those boundaries and what's been set.
And if there is a parent who's deliberately making it difficult and damaging children, then that's toxic. And then the more sensible parent should think whether or not that contact is good contact, or whether or not that needs to change. Because it's hugely damaging for the child. And one of the risks we families don't, we can talk about, especially in those situations, we can say how we feel, or say bad things about each other. And the child hears it, and we don't think they're hearing it. We could be talking to a friend on the phone, or saying, oh, he's such an idiot, or he's this, or he's that, he's done this to me, he's done that to me. But the child's privy to all of that, is listening. And they will listen out. Definitely. Because it's about their father. For you, it's someone you don't love anymore. You can't stand their face, or vice versa. It could be the mother. And I'm not saying just mums talking, dads do talk as well. So it's wrong and it's damaging. So if you are fighting for your children, which often is what happens, then you need to fight for your children's well-being as well, and approach it in the right way. And it's the united approach. Everything else you can have disagreement with, whether it's finances or whatever. But when it comes to your child, I mean, it's not rocket science. It's having that positive approach to parenting, and that needs to be communicated through both parents. So if one parent has put in a consequence, the other parent, and the child goes to the other parent, that parent has to adhere to it.
Yes. Okay. We have Joshua Dane. He said it's a great topic. Well done for sharing these ideas and thoughts around parenting. So we had some positive feedback coming through. So I'm happy with that. But we are coming to the end of our show. So Aiskulla show has ended. And of course, there's so many topics that we can cover. Inshallah, we'll have you back on at some point to discuss some of the other things that we touched on. You'll be sick and tired of me by the time I'm done. So yeah, dear viewers, thank you. Of course, আপনারা কোনো question থাকে যদি, you can comment on the video, and we will try and pick it up and answer it if we can. So আপনারা আশা করি বুঝতে পারছেন যে আমরা টপিক কিতা আছিল আজকে, and আপনারা যদি অন্য কিছু জানার থাকে বা কোনো question থাকে, প্লিজ আমরা কাছে কমেন্ট করিয়া ফাটাইন জানো, and আমরা চেষ্টা করব যে আপনারা আরো ইনফরমেশন দিতাম. Abdul Mukit bhai, thank you so much for coming on the show today, for taking out your time.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Of course. Okay then, viewers, and until next time on Our Voice with Amina, where there's no stigma, no shame, only on Relaks Radio Bangla. I'll see you next time.
সকাল দুপুর সন্ধ্যা রাতে তোমার আমার কথা হবে রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলায়, রিল্যাক্স রেডিও বাংলা।